some wonderful guests with us. We're excited for y'all to hear, and I know there's probably be a few more people trickle in, but we want to kick things off in here just for a few minutes from our Lieutenant Governor, Delbert Hosemann. As many of y'all know, he has a long history with MEC in his time as Secretary of State and now as Lieutenant Governor, and a variety of things that he's worked on as it has an impact on the business community. And we appreciate the partnership that we have with the Lieutenant Governor. And at this time, I'm going to turn the mic over to him. Governor?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank y'all. It's good to have y'all in the Capitol. Welcome to your Capitol. It's I was telling somebody the other day, we were up here the other 9 months every day, and it's real quiet and not anything going on. And all of a sudden, the first Tuesday, all of my friendly lobbyists show up. You know, I love you guys. How are your families? You know, it's good to have you back in the Capitol and everybody else. And so it's a special time. We're in our second day, and we just finished our second day. We had the opportunity to speak yesterday, Speaker and I did, to the board, so I don't want to replicate some of those that were in there. We have, as you know, been working hard on various and sundry things. MFLEX is going great, which is our business incentives part. That's doing really well all over. On this AWS, that was one of the moving factors for them to come here. So we're doing well, I think, on that. It's about time to start looking at our business incentives back again. We'll start doing that this year. On taxes, we've been lowering taxes and eliminating the income tax, and I saw we're down to 4.4, and somebody's trying to get less than we are, and we're getting less and less, and we'll go down again this year and next year, and the next year you'll see some proposals from us to continue the elimination of the income tax in a gradual, fiscally responsible way. We still got to pay teachers and highway patrol and judiciary and those kinds of things. I have an interest in paying down the grocery tax. You'll see that come out of the Senate this year. We have the highest grocery tax in the country, and that's not acceptable. It is acceptable to have a balanced tax program. All of you, I think, would realize that you have to have a balance. You don't want to have too much in one way or another. To date, we're about $108 million below budget for this year. Our budget was $7.6 billion. And we actually expended in our budget. Our expenses were about $7 billion. We cut our budget back this year, and our legislative budget office is chaired by the Speaker and myself. So we cut our budget back some. We're behind on the collections this year, mainly from corporate income tax. So all of you that are in corporations, there's going to be a small bucket out. So if you would put your check in that bucket, you could bring us back even. I really appreciate that. I look at this as kind of a yellow blinking light, that we need to be fiscally responsible. There are times in which we have aberrations, like hopefully the corporate tax is, but some of that's generated, y'all, by the fact that we passed legislation to allow you to expense your capital improvements. And obviously when you expense them this year, you won't get your depreciation for next year. So there is some aberration, there is some reason there's a flight to LLCs by individuals because they don't want the dual taxation. LLCs, when we rewrote it as Secretary of State, I think we got down to 46,000. There are hundreds of thousands of them operating in Mississippi, so they're pass-through entities, and so we're not getting the corporate tax from those. But even that doesn't explain, you know, $130 million difference in our corporate tax. And visiting with the head of the Department of Revenue over there, Chris Graham, the other day about this, we don't have an absolute answer for that issue. So we're looking at that. Real important on infrastructure. The legislature, the House and the Senate, when we started in 2020, we were spending $1.1 billion on infrastructure. This last year was $2.2 billion. So where you see all those orange barrels and everything, it's $1.1 billion and ever been spent on infrastructure was being spent by the legislature in these years. That's a critical part, and you're seeing them, the barrels and everything else you're seeing are spread all over the state, and I'm very pleased that we're doing the infrastructure part. We still have the emergency road and bridge for our local counties. Those kinds of things are still going on, so that's good. We passed a bill that y'all can get a 50% tax credit for child care. I'm hopeful that you will use that. Our barriers, as we look at our labor force participation rate, which is low, it's 54.5%. We need to have it up closer to 60. The nation runs about 62%. That's 50 or 100,000 more people that would be working. A lot of those barriers to interest are child care. So when we passed our statute, we got a 50% tax credit. And as you know, you can write a check on the Treasury. Credit for you, and we're very hopeful that MEC and the members will utilize that credit and also their own expenditure to make sure that moms can get a place to leave their children and come to work. We think that's really important. We do have a really aggressive proposals this year. There are two things, and I'll wrap up. The first is this PERS problem. Now, everybody in here has a 401k probably. The state didn't do that. Under Democratic administration, they passed a retirement plan that included a 3% compounded COLA. And that 3% compounded COLA has generated a $25 billion deficit in our pension plan. So the Legislative Budget Office, and we hired another actuary. The legislature required them to hire 2 more actuaries, so there were 4. We had 4 actuaries, and we worked with them the last year in looking at a new retirement plan for employees. Those will matriculate, and was passed last week, that the trustees passed a bill that said, passed a resolution that said that they would do a hybrid, which is a part defined benefit, part 401k plan for employees. It will cost us about 9% versus the 19.9 that we're paying now. The difference will go to pay for the current retirees and employees that are working here and in counties and cities and education around Mississippi. It'll take us probably 25 years to bail ourselves out of it. The legislature, by going to 19.5%, is increasing its funding by about $300 million a year to have that happen. But we had a commitment to our employees and our retirees, and we're going to be able to honor that commitment. This is a breakthrough in Mississippi. If any of your companies had a $25 billion pension deficit, you probably wouldn't be sitting here. You'd be working on something else. So I'm real pleased the leadership from the trustees and the leadership from Legislative Budget Office is allowing us to stop the bleeding and start with a new plan for all new employees that will be hired after July the 1st. So I'm really excited about that part, and we're looking forward to having that completed. We have some issues, and the 2 issues I'll bring to your attention real quick, and we'll get to the speaker and the other speakers. Our agricultural system is struggling, y'all, more than it ever has. And you'll see it in the Delta this year. Our cost of inputs, our soybean prices are $9.50 or $9.75. The cost to input them in the ground is $12. You'll see some untilled soil in Mississippi for the first time probably since the 60s, when the government started paying people to clear land to make soybean fields. That is a worldwide issue, and it's not going to go away this year. Mississippi Farm Bureau took the initiative. They got $10 billion from Congress to pay out up to $250,000 to our farmers. That is not going to be sufficient long term. So our bankers are struggling with whether or not to furnish. Our farmers are struggling with whether or not to plant. And by the way, we get $8.7 billion in our agricultural community. They employ 17% of all employees in Mississippi. So we will have to address on some kind of fashion the agricultural slump that we're going to be here, and it is not short term. So it will be a longer term method. You can see what's happening in Brazil and what the Chinese are doing down there. They've cleared enough land, as the same as Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana put together. So this is not a short-term issue, and it's a longer-term issue for what is our #1 producer in Mississippi, has for years, maybe the Agricultural Department. So we're excited about dealing with that. As you know, Nissan's merging with Honda, and we want to make sure that we're the #1 company for here. That factory's been there 30 years, and it's been a leader. There are about 7 Tier 1 suppliers located around it, so it's thousands of employees. We do a good job. We're a non-unionized plant. It's been very efficient, so we're real hopeful that that will continue on as well. But the other last thing I want to tell you is AWS is not a $10 million project, it's about a $25 billion project. I met with the operations manager, Dwayne Walker, the other day. We had a good visit. We went out to Jackson State to recruit engineers to go to work out there. And in the course of that conversation, I said, you're spending $25 billion, kind of, how's it going? And we got tenants, we got enough people, or where are we? And he said, oh no, we're fully utilized. We don't have any more space in those two buildings. So my first comment was, okay, where are we going to build the next one? We're only limited by our energy generation, which energy is building 2 new plants. So that factory, that he told me when they came down here up in the Capitol just last week, the head of all their government relations said, in the entire country, we have to wait on contractors and on people to do their job. There's only one place that the contractors are waiting on Amazon, and that's in Madison County. They're ahead. Our energy, our water, all the things that we promised them, our economic benefits, all our training, the things that we promised, we're actually ahead of Amazon. And I said, you go tell that to everybody that you run into in the whole world, that this is a place to come build a factory because our people work and we get our stuff done on time and we honor our promises. So, very prosperous, year's looking good. We've got a couple of challenges I mentioned to you, but the state's never been in a position where we are actually paying off debt, we're lowering taxes, and we're educating our children, and we're building our infrastructure. Since 1817, it hadn't been like this. So a lot of people standing here and a lot of people upstairs have had a lot to do with that, but we're in a great shape. And so enjoy yourselves, and your corporate people, y'all make sure you get your money in. Thank y'all very much.
Again, thank you, Lieutenant Governor Hoseman. We appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us. Our next speaker is Speaker of the House, Jason White. Now, what you understand is the Speaker of the House is elected by the members of the House. He has 2 jobs. He gets to proceed over the processes that take place in the House of Representatives, and he's still a representative for a district that he represents at home back in the Kosciuszko and West area that he represents. So he kind of has double duty. But I will tell you what, he has really shown us that he's excited about this role, and it's been a joy to work with him this past year, and we're looking forward to continuing to work with Speaker White as we go forward. So please welcome Speaker Jason White.
Thank you all for that. Thank you, Scott. He did talk about my legislative district as opposed to just my role as speaker. And we talk in our office a lot of times about representatives have 3 lanes. If you can imagine a 3-lane highway. They've got what's good for them, what's good for their district, and what's good for the state. And those lines and those lanes don't always go in the same direction. And so, yes, it even takes one more lane for me because I'm sitting over there, we're trying to get everybody going in the same direction, and you don't mind being the tip of the spear, but you want to know where we're going and where everybody is, and so sometimes it's tricky making those 3 lanes all merge and go in the right direction, Lex. It gets tricky sometimes for sure. We learned a lot in our first year as speaker. I learned real quick that it is very easy around this place to play defense. When you get to sit in the chair that I get to sit in, you can just sit on your hands, and through legislative deadlines and those kind of things, you can run the clock out and you can kill just about anything you want to. What gets real hard is when you actually want to play offense and move the ball or move somebody's cheese around a little bit, or maybe even think outside the box and do something that's never been done before. And so, we did some of that in our first session, and all I'll say about that is I warned you on the front end that we were going to go in some of those places. I see some of you smiling now. It didn't come without warning, I'll say it that way. I was looking through y'all's priorities for the 2025 session, and one of the things that is on your list of MEC's legislative priorities for the 2025 session is a dedicated stream of funding for infrastructure. A dedicated, reliable stream of funding to finally bring our highway system and our roads and bridges and our infrastructure in this state into the 21st century. And when we look at that and think about that, I want to put this out there to you. No serious conversation about tax reform and the way we fund state government can take place if it does not include that integral piece. And so you're going to hear a lot in the coming weeks out of this building about tax reform and about changing the way we fund state government and the way we run this deal. When we've done it for so long a certain way, it is hard to go in a different direction. But that piece specifically has to be part of the conversation. The legislation that you will see come forward in the House is taking shape. We're almost ready to drop it and run with it. And you're going to hear more from our chairman of House Ways and Means Committee, Trey Lamar, in a minute. And he's probably going to go into some more specifics about our tax reform package. So I don't want to steal his thunder. And many of you I spoke to yesterday in y'all's meeting over at the Westin. So I won't rehash that. And he is much more knowledgeable on the details and the finer points. But I want to remind y'all of a couple of things there. Our package will be an all-encompassing piece of legislation. We won't have a bill that deals with highways and a bill that deals with income tax and a bill that deals with grocery tax or that deals with the way municipalities receive their diversions. All of that stuff will be in one piece of legislation. It will be in one bill. And at the end of the day, when the smoke settles on that bill, it is in excess of $1 billion tax cut. So when somebody comes to you and says, oh, well, they're moving this, or they're changing this, or they're raising my gas tax, or they're doing this, at the end of the day, for a Mississippi taxpayer, it is a package that is in excess of $1 billion tax cut and moves our economy and our state government to a consumption form of government in the way it's funded. And it is the way, if any of you were setting up your businesses or if you were setting up your state, this is the way you would do it. You would never tax people's hard-earned dollars. We tax them enough at the federal level. We don't need to tax them here. When somebody tells you they're worried about, oh, we just don't know if we can make a budget, I'll tell you this. I've been in the room. You don't want politicians with all this extra money laying around because it's real easy to spend other people's money. It's a whole lot harder when you start having to sharpen the pencil and make a real budget. So those things come with some caveats. We understand in the House of Representatives there are core functions of government that must be funded. Nobody here is trying to shut down any form of government or squeeze our cities and counties. Cities will remain whole in any tax diversion as we look at sales tax. As we cut the grocery tax, they will be made whole. I've assured their leaders in meetings specifically with them on that issue. It will also include a key component where counties for the first time will receive a sales tax diversion that will go directly to MDOT to fund our state aid road system. That is one of the most popular items that MDOT does as it relates to county roads. And so as you see this package develop, that's another key feature that is a local feature in addition to a little bit of extra money for our municipalities besides what they're receiving now. Counties for the first time will see a form of sales tax in that. Sales tax collected in the county, a portion of that will go to fund state aid, about $80–90 million a year, which is almost 100% increase for state aid and brings some of our county roads and systems closer up to par. It's gradual. It's over 10 years. Nobody's ripping the Band-Aid off this year or next year. It is gradual. It is measured. And yes, it's conservative. It is that. We would like, our stated goal is to cut the grocery tax in half. As your Lieutenant Governor told you, we do have the highest in the nation. We can cut that. We can stand that. Now, as I told some of you yesterday, it's a double hit to the state because we're going to keep our cities whole, so we're going to absorb the cut, even the part that the city would take, because most of our cities derive a lot of their retail sales tax comes from the sale of groceries, especially small and medium-sized towns. So they will be kept whole. So when somebody tells you this is going to gut city government's coffers and the way they run their government, they'll have to make, it's not true. They'll actually see a slight increase. Chairman Lamar will probably go into that a little bit more with y'all. But I want to really, y'all to understand, if nothing else, that this package has to be looked at in a singular lens. You can't take any piece of it and say, well, this, that. It's a total package. And the total package considered is $1 billion tax cut in the form of savings to Mississippians. It takes 10 years to get there, but it is worth the effort and it is worth y'all's time. At some point in the very near future, I'm going to ask y'all to support it in your industries and with the sway and the power that you have in your communities and your employees and the reach that you have as MEC, as our state's Chamber of Commerce. You're going to be called upon, like you do on other issues that you see as best for our state. You're going to be called on this. It is time we bring our highway system into the modern infrastructure world that other states are living in, especially our southern states that we compete with specifically, and we stay competitive in the income tax world and move to a consumption-based economy. It is a well thought out plan. I want to applaud Trey Lamar for working so hard on it. He's a lawyer. He's also a tax lawyer. He's got all of those good degrees that tell you he knows what he's talking about. Real quick, a couple other things y'all are going to get tired of reading about and seeing on the news and in your paper or on your iPad as you consume your news, however that is. We're going to spend a bunch of time talking about education in Mississippi, and I know we do that every year, but this year specifically, we're going to move. Last year we spent a lot of time on that new funding formula. We're going to move in a different direction now and talk about the delivery of our education and the way parents access public education in Mississippi, specifically the tax dollars that we put toward it. We gave a historic amount in the form of appropriation to K-12 education last year, over $3 billion. We put our money where our mouth was. Politicians quit talking about fully funding and funding schools, and we actually did it. It was historic. Schools should be funded, and we've done that. And any tax reform we enact won't do anything to undo that. But it's time we talk about how we address failing and insufficient schools in our state. And we have gone too long in ignoring it. And we may not have the perfect solution, but to stick our head in the sand and pretend like it's not an issue won't fix it. I'm just naive enough and new enough to be willing to go there. It'll ruffle some feathers because, again, we're talking about moving things around a little bit and actually giving parents, who, by the way, almost in every case happen to be taxpayers as well, send their money here for us to appropriate and spend. They ought to have a say, not just in the part that goes to roads or that goes to public safety or Medicaid or these other things. They should have a say in how we spend it on their children's education. And that's, as we come forward, we think with common sense solutions that are baby steps, no more. We think they deserve a real analysis and a weighing in specifically from our business community. As we move toward a K-12 system that emphasizes career tech and that whole space, y'all have a seat at that table, and I welcome you to it, number one, but I encourage you to engage in that and listen with an open mind to what we're talking about doing, and don't hear a few of the red herrings that throw you off by saying we've never done it that way or that could wreck a good public school. The last thing we want to do is do anything to harm the gains that have been made in our public education over the last few years. And mind you, I'm biased a little bit. I would say in the last 12 years under Republican leadership. We get a bad rap as Republicans that we're bad old guys that don't want to spend the money and don't want to do anything. But we've increased K-12 budgets. We've made some cutting edge reforms that we took a lot of bullets at the time, but they have proven to be very successful from third grade reading gate on down. And we are actually, when some of us go to conferences, representatives and senators in other states, for the first time, people actually go and want to find us and talk to us for a little bit. They want to find Dean Kirby and find out how he passed third grade reading gate. Or they want to talk to the chairman of Ways and Means about how did we cut taxes to get to 4%? Because other states, as y'all know, Arkansas just cut to 3.9, Louisiana just cut to 3.5. So it is a competitive world that we live in, even here in Mississippi. And with all the cool things going on in economic development, whether they're data centers or the other things are going, it is true when people say we have a little momentum and we're just small enough and so few of us that we can bob and weave. And I would submit we're punching above our weight just a little bit. So let's take that momentum, and while we're here, we hadn't borrowed money in 3 years. We won't again this year. That's never happened in my 12 years in this place, and the governor, lieutenant governor talked about that being historic probably all the way back. That's probably true. So we've paid down our debt significantly. The bank account is full with over $2 billion. We've got some capital here. Let's not miss this chance to figure out putting us on the best path forward, specifically in our way we fund state government and our highways, the way we deliver education. And the last thing I'll say is we are going to continue to talk about health care and ways to find some sort of health care coverage for low-income workers. I don't know what that looks like in a new Trump administration, but we're going to work hard to get there. We're going to go see his people and figure it out. 40 states have figured it out. We need to figure it out. So you're going to continue to hear us beat that drum and try to find a way moving forward. They may have an innovative idea that works perfect for a small rural state like ours. And so I welcome the opportunities that a Trump administration affords in that space, and maybe an ability for us to think outside the box a little bit in the way that we deliver health care to those people. You're going to hear some more talk, those of you in the healthcare industry, about reforming our CON process, Certificate of Need, the way you deliver services or new services. And again, we don't want to blow up healthcare communities and the way they're delivered. We want to enhance and make it better, specifically in psychiatric and a few other specific areas where we could stand to take the reins off a little bit, as well as streamlining the process by where if you're just simply making a capital investment in facilities you currently have, you shouldn't have to go through that arduous process to spend your own money on your own stuff and expand what you're doing in that way. So we want to make that easier and more business friendly, much the same way permitting in other areas of industries throughout our state. We're going to work hard on those. Stay tuned. There'll always be something at the Capitol that pops up that nobody thought about, and it'll suck all the air out of the room, and I wish I knew that. I would hold it over Dean Kirby's head when we go forward, but I don't know what that is. But I thank y'all for your interest. The last thing I'll say is I'll applaud your efforts in being plugged in your state legislature and your state government and what goes on. As I look around the room, I see faces that pass through my office often to sometimes pat me on the back, but a lot of times to tell me what we're doing wrong. And the last thing I would say is we have an open door policy in the Speaker's office, and coming from a small town lawyer spot, I have pretty thick skin, and I'm open to that criticism, and we appreciate it. We want to do what's right, not what's our way, but what's right for Mississippians and makes our state a better place to work, worship, and raise a family. So with that, thank y'all for what you do for our state. I really appreciate it. Come see us anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, we have enjoyed working with you in the last year and look forward to productive years in the future as well. Our next guest, it really gives me a great honor to introduce Senator Dean Kirby. He serves as the President Pro Tem of the Mississippi Senate. Early in my career as a lobbyist, he was the finance chairman, and we worked on some really important issues as it related to getting teachers to stay in the classroom longer, and he was very dedicated in helping us getting through that. And since that time, there's been a variety of issues that we've worked with the Senator on, and I just want to welcome him and thank him for being with us today. Senator Kirby.
Thank you. You know, Scott's right. I was sitting there thinking how long we've been friends, and it's been a long time. Not, what, 30 years plus? Close. Yeah, close. Matter of fact, he does such a good job. He does. I'm telling you, he represents you well. He does such a good job. I'm going to ask something very unusual. I'm going to ask everyone to stand up and give Scott a standing ovation, if you would, for what he's done. He very well deserves that. I mean, he does a fantastic job up here. He's very well respected and very well liked. Also wanted him to have a standing ovation so I could tell people that I got a standing ovation while I was speaking today. So that was one of the reasons. But anyway, I want to thank each and every one of you for what you do. We appreciate everyone. The door's always open. Our ears hopefully are open as well, and we're listening to what you say. As I look around, I have a lot of friends here that I've made over the years, and I appreciate each and every one of you. The Lieutenant Governor Speaker pretty much covered the issues, or the major issues I think that we're going to have this year. But one thing they haven't talked about is we're going to have reapportionment or redistricting again for some of our legislators. In the Senate, I've been working on it, by the way. As you know, 2 years ago we passed, and everybody was happy, and everyone thought they had the perfect districts and had the perfect senator and perfect House member and all that good stuff. And then someone filed suit, a group filed suit, and challenged it and won in court. And so just partial re-elections again this year we're going to have. And it's probably going to affect about 6, I would say, maybe 7 in the DeSoto County area and 5 or 6 in the Hattiesburg area. The lawsuit said we'd have new minority districts, one in DeSoto County and one in Hattiesburg. And so because of that, we're going to comply with the courts, and we're going to do exactly what they say, and we're going to hopefully work everything out. I've met with almost every senator already and gone over what could be possibly their new district. I mean, nothing's set in stone by any means yet, and we're still working on it every day. Actually, I've been working on it since July, would you believe? So it's going to be some races and legislative races this year. So what I'm asking you is, if you like your senator and your senator is doing a good job, and it's one of those maybe 12 senators that have to run, I'm asking for your support right now to help them get reelected. And we have some really good ones that are going to be affected now, and it's not my fault. I'm kind of the messenger of this group, but I'm doing the best I can. Actually, the plaintiff's proposed map to us had 41 senators running. I've got that down to 12. So I think at this time. So I feel real good about it. I think that everyone's going to be pleased with the outcome. At least I hope so. The overall atmosphere, I should say, of the Senate, I haven't been down on the House end yet, but I'm sure it's just as good. I'm seeing a lot of smiles, and everyone knows that we got a lot of work to do this year. And there's going to be some major issues. Some will die, of course. Some will pass. But nothing's dead till it's dead up here, as you know. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for all you do. Thank you for not just your businesses, but MEC. It makes a big difference. We do listen. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Again, we appreciate Senator Kirby and the work that he is continuing to do. Just like there's a pro tem in the Senate, there's also one in the House. The Speaker pro tem in the House is Manley Barton. Unfortunately, Representative Barton couldn't be with us today, but we're very fortunate to have with us Representative Trey Lamar, who is chairman of our Ways and Means Committee. As the Speaker talked about, he is the guy that looks at where's the revenue coming in. There's another very important job that he has that we've really enjoyed working with him on, and that is making sure that our economic development environment continues to be strong in our state. And without question, the work that he has done over the last few years in his role as chairman of Ways and Means, we're seeing the benefits and we're seeing the rewards of that all across the state of Mississippi. So please join me in welcoming Representative Trey Lamar, our chairman of Ways and Means.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to speak to the business leaders of our state today. I understand it's almost lunchtime, so trust me, I will be very brief. And I know I've been asked to talk about taxes. So let me clear up a few things. I want everybody to understand that the current state of our state budget, because there's been some confusion and sometimes people get lost in translation where we are. We just approved a budget this past year that is set, where we're set to bring in $700 million more than our actual budget. So, when reports come in a little bit here and a little bit there, I'm not worried about that. And on top of that, we've got almost $2.5 billion in reserves in the bank. So please keep that in mind as I talk to you about some of the reforms that we're looking at going forward. So we're starting out of the gate with approximately $700 million in our budget, over and above what we're spending on government right now out of our general fund. So that's a very important key point. When we talk about tax reform, a little bit of history here. Tax reform started before this, but really kicked off in my career with the 2016 reforms. That's almost 10 years ago now. Okay, so that's when we started off with some other business reforms in our tax code, but we also started eliminating the income tax, the individual income tax in the state of Mississippi. I like to refer that as the tax on work, because that's exactly what it is. It's a tax against productivity for your workers. So let me say this. The House reform that you're going to see very soon, I hope the bill's ready today. We're ready to go with it. Our friends in the Senate know it's coming. I look forward to debating it. But there's a few key points I want to go over with you. It's not just going to be looking at the income tax. I'm a staunch supporter in eliminating the income tax in the state of Mississippi. There are 9 states across America that give us a pattern that show this can be done. But our reform is going to take a holistic approach at our entire tax code. If you're not willing to do that, okay, then by default what you're saying is that we have a perfect tax code. And I'm here today to tell you we have a far from perfect tax code. The Lieutenant Governor previously mentioned you want balance in your tax code, and I certainly agree with that. But the current tax code is a 100 years of a patchwork system that does not fund government in the way that's most fair to our taxpayers. And so that's what we're trying to look at. When I stood before this business community and really the state back in September, October, when we had our tax summit out in Flowood, some of you may have been there, I stood up and I told everybody that was there that day, as part of this effort, I've got 3 goals. And the House has 3 goals. Number 1, with the leadership we have in the House, in the governor's office, and in the Senate, there is no reason that our goal in this area should not be the number 1 most competitive, most fair tax code in the entire country. Why is that not our goal? So it is. I'm here today to tell you that is our goal. That is what we are trying to get to. Number 1 most fair tax code in the entire state that still takes care of government needs. So, as the speaker said, I'm going to get into a little bit of the specifics, but I'm not going to get all into the numbers because I don't want to bore you too much. But it's important, and it's extremely important to your industries. In addition to that being the number 1 goal, we also recognize that government is closest to the people at the city and the county level. And our cities and our counties have real needs. Some of you, all of you have homes that you live in, and you drive over city roads every single day that are, some of them falling apart. We know and we recognize those needs. So as part of this reform, we wanted to look at how can we provide more money for the real role of government at the local level. And then thirdly, I want you to pay very close attention to this. We are trying to fund a modern infrastructure system on 1987 dollars. Okay, I'm telling you that is impossible. Okay, so the third goal of our reform is to bring our highway funding and our transportation system into the 21st century. So you may be thinking, all right, how are you going to do that? The House plan is going to be the largest tax cut in the history of the state. It's going to cut approximately $2.2 billion over a 10-year period while cutting our grocery tax in half and eliminating the tax on work in the state of Mississippi. It will shift some other monies around in the sales tax area and on fuel tax that will total about $1.1 billion. So the net tax cut over this plan will be a $1.1 billion net tax cut for the people of this state that will take a holistic approach and look at our tax code, and it will bring more money to our cities and counties, and at the same time, it will add $500 million per year in new money to our state transportation highway system and our, what I call our multimodal rails, ports, and airports. I'm telling you this is possible. We've studied this for years now, and we're at the point now, 10 years into this, from 2016 when this started, where we can look at it and we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, where we can continue to eliminate gradually the income tax right at the same rate that we've been eliminating it over the last 10 years, where we've seen record growth, until that gets to 0. Everybody buys food. We want to cut the grocery tax in half. And when you do that over a period of time, responsibly, when you start with a $700 million surplus in your budget with $2.5 billion in the bank, we can do it. And that's what the House is systematically over the next few days and weeks and months going to prove to the state of Mississippi, the business community and our everyday workers, our wage earners, that we can do this, we can do it responsibly, and at the end of this plan, we can bring our transportation system into the 21st century of how we fund it, and it will set the standard for the future of business and commerce in the state of Mississippi for many, many years to come. So I look forward to continuing to work with y'all as we go out this process. As the Speaker said, we have an open door policy in the House. If you have questions, come see us. I look forward to it, and thank y'all very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will tell you, I hope that this has been a good day for you. I feel like it has. It's really a good day when you can start off the morning with a $10 billion economic development announcement, and then you get to have fresh Gulf shrimp for lunch. So the buses will get you back to the Trade Mart. We'll have a great buffet there, and I look forward to visiting with you some before y'all go home.